We're pleased to start things off in the interview room with Jordan Spieth. Jordan, welcome to your 13th PGA Championship. How are you feeling about your game coming into this week?
I think I've been trending really well. I had had an off approach week last week, which has actually been something that's been, I think, trending nicely for me. Just made some kind of dumb mistakes that were multiple shot problems around that kind of old school course. But kind of throwing that out, I feel really good about some of the stuff I've been working on. Some of the kind of mechanics and traction of how I'm swinging the club are getting more sound and more consistent. I'm getting more confident in that, feeling like I can play all the ball flights that I'd like to. And you need that around this golf course because you got to work it both ways, different heights. Obviously the greens, although the course is soft now, the greens, I played yesterday in that rain, and even as it was raining, the greens were still firm and they had the sub-air going. So you're just going to have to be a shot maker around here, and I feel like that part of my game has been improving as the year's gone on. And this is a place you just can't fake it. There's a number of great golf courses that we play, and this is one of them. And you'll get guys shoot 5, 6, 7 under, and you'll get guys shoot 5, 6, 7 over. And it's just, there's no faking it. The rough's up a little more than I think what we normally see when we come here during the season. So a little more premium on the fairways. Trying to find greens in regulation will be my goal.
That's great. Thanks, Jordan. We'll open up for questions. Starting right here with Jim.
Since the Masters, have you found yourself thinking more about the Grand Slam than you might have in previous years?
I don't think so. It's been more, I've been surprised at, there's been a number of years I've come to the PGA and no one's really even asked me about it. And there's been some years where it was, a storyline, I guess. It's funny, I think if Rory didn't, then it wouldn't have been a storyline for me here necessarily. It's always a storyline if I work my way in, but at least ahead of time, I've just felt like I've been asked about it more than, other years, including years where I've come in, I want to say 22, I came in after winning and then finishing second back-to-back, which I would have thought would be a time where that would have been one. So I've kind of been surprised by the dynamic a little bit. But it's always circled on the calendar for me. It's I guess if I could pick one, if I could only win one tournament the rest of my life, I'd pick this one for that reason. And obviously watching Rory win after, giving it a try for a number of years was inspiring. You could tell it was a harder win than most of the time. He makes it look a lot easier. And so that obviously was on the forefront of his mind. And so something like that has not been done by many people, and there's a reason why. And but I'd love to throw my hat in the ring and give it a chance come the weekend this week.
Go next to Doug on 8, followed by Gary on 6.
When you came to a PGA and people weren't talking about the Grand Slam, did you find that insulting?
Not really, no. Because the years I'm talking about, a lot of times I wasn't in very good form, and if you're not in very good form coming to a major, I had a chance in 2019 and I was not in form. And I was in the final group on Saturday with Brooks, and I was like, I know what it's like to have control of my game. I've played with Brooks with control of my game. I see what he's doing right now, and I don't have mine, and let's see if I can fake it these next 2 days. I feel a lot better now than, say, I did in that. But it's I'm not insulted by it. Typically there's a lot of storylines, and I feel like for so many years watching Phil's at the U.S. Open, it was some, then it wasn't some, then he wins the PGA recently, then all of a sudden it becomes a storyline again in the U.S. Open. So it just kind of bounces back and forth within the noise, I guess.
Jordan, in 17, right after the PGA here, you and I had a conversation in Dallas, and I asked you about winning this championship, and you said you thought it would be the hardest one. And you said it wasn't because of the psychological component of it being the Grand Slam. You thought it was the setups of this championship. And knowing all the events that were ahead, knowing the sites, has that opinion evolved from then to now?
Well, I think the hardest one, I believe statistically for me, if I look back at all my history of professional golf, would have been the U.S. Open, but I somehow snuck that one out. So then the PGA would be second, because the Masters and the Open play a lot more into my strengths than the other two do. So I think that's why I was saying that, because I'd already won the U.S. Open because I snuck it out on a course that's not a normal U.S. Open golf course. And so, yeah, I would say that had I won the PGA, I would have easily said the U.S. Open, and I didn't win the U.S. Open, I would have reversed that. But having been the case, I think I'm in a position now, just because I have faster ball speed than I did, back then by a significant amount. It was really just kind of the driving statistic that you need at U.S. Opens and PGAs that would have, I think, held me back. So there was just going to be certain courses that, like Whistling Straits, that you could maybe get away with it, and I had a good shot there. But some of these big American golf courses with thick rough, which are typically these more PGAs are played on those than even U.S. Opens, I would have expected to be more of a challenge than the other couple majors. So I think that's nowadays. I think I'm actually maybe have because of my driver becoming a weapon more than it used to be. That leaves me in a position where I feel a little more comfortable on these courses. So having said that, you got to go out and execute. But a familiar golf course is nice. I don't feel like I have to learn where all the pins are and where the misses are and stuff. You could ask me a whole location on any green around this place right now, and I could tell you how I'm going to play the hole and where I'm going to try to hit it. So it's nice to be at a familiar place this week, and I think that's an advantage a little bit. And then the fact that it's this big slopey Bermuda, I grew up on that. So it's a good opportunity this week for sure.
Next, we'll go to Mike 7, followed by 10, and then 13.
Hey, Jordan. In Austin at the UT Golf Club, which you're very familiar with, I know there's a trophy and display case that's right there in the clubhouse. Just explain the significance of that memento to you and kind of what that means to your legacy as a Texas Longhorn.
It's very cool. I mean, I loved going out there. I spent not long enough, but a lot of days going out and working on my game out there. They have a really cool majors trophy in the team facility as well. It's a Longhorn trophy, and it's every Longhorn that's won a major and what it was. And I think that's a pretty awesome one too. There's a very cool one at the course I grew up at Brookhaven in Dallas. So I mean, just places that are close to my heart, where I learned to love the game, got better at the game, led me to being able to play it professionally and compete at a high level. Those are a few of the most special places to me anywhere in the world, to be honest. And I love going back to UT Club when I get the chance. I'm planning on doing it, more often in the future than I've been able to the last couple years. Kids get a little older, it'll be fun to take them and show them. And but yeah, it's a very nice thing to do. It's moved on to Scotty's more recently, and I'd love to step back in there and add to it, I guess.
Jordan, you mentioned your physical preparation up top. How does your mental preparation for a major differ from a standard tour week?
I think it's more about the golf courses than it is anything else. They're just going to present a little more of a challenge in a different way, and each major is different from the next in what that challenge is. But whether that's side to miss on the fairway that you might get away with in a PGA Tour event that you don't get away with in a major. It's just a little bit of an extra level of course management, and it's ahead of time. It's a lot of the course management preparation that's more of kind of the mental side. But the crowds are bigger, the grandstands are bigger. That over time kind of just becomes a blur. We always have huge crowds at this event. It's and a lot of amphitheater type seating here at Quail Hollow. So I don't think it'll look as different as maybe when we go to an unfamiliar place with huge, like Valhalla last year with huge setups, but we don't know the course very well. So it all just, is a big thing. This is normal for here. Things, obviously they're not triple decker, they're maybe double decker, right? The PGA, always throws in some pretty incredible grandstands, whether it be the PGA Championship or the Ryder Cup. So it's everything's just a little bit more heightened. But I think it's more ahead of time, and as you start to get into it, I think it's actually a little easier on the mental side, easier than it is ahead of time. It just kind of settles into more of a normal tournament. As you start to contend on the weekend, that changes. You sleep a little uneasy. I mean, majors have that historical presence to them. They mean more to every player that's playing this week. We'll tell you if they were going to win one of 4 tournaments, they'd probably pick one of the 4 majors. So that settles in, as you work your way into contention, and then that becomes a little bit of a different animal, just sleeping a little more uneasy and anticipation. And I think it's all the off the course stuff that's harder to handle mentally than on the course.
Bob?
In the aftermath of the wrist surgery, are you now able to swing the club the way that you want to or had wanted to? And has there been any lingering effects to this point still after in the recovery?
Less and less as the year has gone on, which is great. It's hard to tell if it was preventing anything that that I could or couldn't do. So I'm not going to say that it's everything, but just the ease of not worrying about it dislocating, I guess, or subluxing, I think is the term for this specific, is really nice. I mean, I'm just off the course. I'm able to pick my kids up and throw them around, and my wrist doesn't dislocate. You can imagine that that's a good feeling. So when you're golfing, I haven't really been thinking about it over the last couple months. I wake up in the morning, I'm very aware that I had surgery. My left hand feels twice the size of my right for about a half hour every morning. And they say that stops about a year post-op. And it's getting, some days are better than others. I haven't exactly given it a lot of rest in the last few months. And I'm sure that'll help once we hit the off season. But so it's still there, very much so. I'm still aware, but I'm not worried about the same thing happening anymore, thanks to the doctors that I've had and the rehab process that I went through. It was a lot of hard work. Last fall and into the winter was physically and mentally, it was one of the hardest things that I've had to do. Just anybody who's come back from an injury, I mean, you want to be out there doing more and more and more, especially when it's not like I was top 5 in the world last year, right? So I felt like I was going to be coming from behind, and I wasn't able to do much while other guys were getting better. So it's just a hard process to be patient with, especially for me. And it tested every bit of what I could do, and I went by the book, and by the time I was able to play, I think I played well and was kind of in contention in Phoenix, and I was like, man, I'm just incredibly grateful just to be back out here doing this, because there's months where you're just going through the process wondering if or when that would happen again. So I didn't expect this year to be a ridiculous year. It's going to be something that I needed to work slowly towards with a long-term outlook, and I think it's going really well so far. I've got a big stretch and a lot of good opportunities coming up, and a lot less distractions on it than I had last year.